Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 226 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on August 27th, 2024. How are all you wonderful folks doing? Yeah, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing okay. Slowly getting back into a lifting regime at the gym. I have some injury rehab I'm doing, so that's no fun, but it is good to be back in there. And also gearing up for a very large annual research symposium that rolls around every September. So along with this silencer stuff, it's been pretty hectic, not going to lie. It's been pretty crazy, but it is good because the research progression is going very well here. And we're not in the fourth quarter quite yet, I guess. Yes, it's end of August, but I can tell you it's going to be a packed schedule leading up to the fourth quarter and probably all the way through it as well. And we have a great series of publications heading your way with wonderful research from several different companies, actually. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, so today, in fact, we're continuing the current research progression with a white paper on the Combat Application Technologies Dirty Dave, or the DD for short. That's right. So that publication will be live with this episode Wednesday morning. So you folks will be able to dig into that. That's tomorrow morning. So it should be all you folks that are up bright and early should be able to dig into that article just fine. So on this episode today, we'll go ahead and give an introductory discussion to the CAT DD article. And that is focusing on 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO performance. And next week, what we'll do is a technical deep dive on the podcast, per typical. So after this first topic today, this intro, I'll go ahead and say a little bit more about 7.62 NATO on the follow-on topic. Just have some more research updates to give you on that. So that's probably going to be the theme for this episode, okay? So if you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, of course, welcome. We're glad to have you. There are timestamps in the episode description for you to skip to wherever you would like. If you would like to hang around with me a little longer here at the beginning, I'm going to quickly speak to you about the companies who make this podcast possible. Okay, because as always, this podcast is brought to you by Legion Athletics. That's right. Nothing you do, exercise, sports, silencer testing, quantum physics, anything is worth doing without consistency. And you have to do things all the time if you really want to be good at them. And Legion Athletics can help you with that. They have whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, creatine, vitamins, minerals. They actually just shipped me some creatine gummies that I took a couple before this episode. So kind of interesting. Never had creatine in gummy form, but they have that. Do they have everything you need? Well, maybe not, but they do have a lot of it. Check them out at legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes. Code word PEWScience to save 20% off of your first order. And if you keep using the code, you'll save 10% off for every order forever. Get strong. It's important. This episode is also brought to you by the folks at Silencer Shop. That's right. They've done a lot. They've done a lot for the NFA community, guys. A lot for the industry, a lot for consumers. And they've done a lot for dealers, large and small nationwide. If you are a new dealer looking to get started in the space and maybe you're not holding a lot of inventory, maybe you want low overhead, things like that, and maybe just looking to do it in a simple fashion, Silencer Shop might be able to help you out. You can use their kiosk, do your fingerprints and photos electronically. And in turn, you will cut down on errors, just simplify your silencer purchasing process. You get a money-back guarantee. It's pretty good. No transfer fees, no paperwork errors, just you and your silencer with no drama. Truly is silencer ownership simplified. And another set of great folks that kind of help you out with silencers as the consumer, and we really like this about them, is Top Gun Range Houston. Houston is a great place for firearms, always has been. It's a very big market, and so you get a lot of exposure in that market. And if you're passing through, Top Gun Range is a really good place to check out. They have a 15-lane indoor range. Okay, that's pretty significant for an area like that. They have the largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas, and you can rent pistols and rifles and shotguns and machine guns, but you can also rent the silencers, and that right there is a really big deal. Okay, trying before you buy with regard to silencer technology, even if it's in an indoor range, is a very significant benefit. So they're great guys. Kyle and his crew there at Top Gun Range were on a tight ship. It's a fantastic facility. You can check out their inventory at topgunrange.com. You can find my Instagram at Top Gun Range. Go check them out. This episode is also brought to you by Capital Armory. It is no secret that silencers are in high demand right now, and at least at the current time. Approvals are going by pretty quickly. When you look at this situation, you're probably going to need options as a consumer if you want to find the silencer you're looking for. Okay, Capital Armory is here to help with that. They have a unique twist on it. Not only do they have a large selection of silencers and they help you with the paperwork, they can actually ship the silencer directly to you. And so, for those of you who work nights, you can never step in a gun store. You know what? That's a pretty big plus. So if you live in one of the 42 states where silencers are legal, order a silencer in your living room and then have it shipped directly to the same living room. It's pretty wild. So it's really that easy. Capital Armory, silencer shipped directly to your door. And finally, this podcast is brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. I'm the technical director of the lab. In the interest of public education, we do sponsor this podcast. We run a public research effort with our goal being to continue to push the silencer industry forward one test at a time. You can visit our website at pewscience.com for the suppression rating. We created it to be the simplest, most accurate hearing safe rating for your suppressed small arms. It's based on true human ear response of the entire gunshot from before combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone, all the mechanical operation is ceased out of the weapon system. It is the most accurate way to quantify signature severity that we know of in the world. Pew Science is the home of the silencer sound standard. There are 7 sections there on the website. It's the most in-depth and accurate silencer data and analysis in the world. And it's all available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com. And you can support this podcast yourself. You can support our laboratory. You can support all the public testing we do by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. You can donate a one-time donation if you don't like recurring things on the website as well. There's options for you. And you know what? Every little bit does help, but we do understand that times can be tight. And if you can't contribute monetarily, that's fine. Just go ahead and spread the word. Let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. Give the podcast a good rating, Spotify, iTunes, like and subscribe on YouTube, or all that good stuff. Spread the word. Tell your friends and family. Tell your kids. And we can, normalize the use of suppressed small arms together. Okay, so the 2 topics I would like to discuss with you today. Topic 1, Sound Signature Review 6.159. Gosh, we're already up to 159. That's wild. The Combat Application Technologies CAT-DD A1 with 7.62 NATO. Yeah, the Dirty Dave. So this is a bolt action evaluation of a K silencer that's intended to be used on reciprocating systems. So how does it perform? What do we learn about its performance from this test program? Is there anything of note? I would say that there's unusual performance. That's for sure. So again, this will be the introductory discussion for the white paper that we published today with this episode. Okay. And then topic 2, we'll go into just a preview for you with regard to some more data and analysis coming soon. We can continue to explore combustion in the 7.62 NATO regime. And soon, I'll put that in quotes, we'll move into really stretching our 7.62 NATO evaluations, I think, if it all works out according to my plans, my evil plan. Yeah, not that evil, though. Moving to topic 1 at a time at 8 minutes and 25 seconds. Okay, very good. Yeah, topic 1, Sound Signature Review 6.159, the Combat Application Technologies CAT-DD A1, Dirty Dave, on 7.62 NATO. Yes, so this one is very interesting. We're sticking in the 7.62 NATO combustion regime for a minute. Okay, for a minute here, folks. We're going to be here. And I told you that last episode. You saw a ton of 5.56 info in the not-so-recent past, right? You saw Surefire stuff. You saw Knight stuff. I mean, counting the Surefire and Knight stuff together, you saw about 17 tests worth of results and really in-depth analysis as well. And before that, actually, we were doing some 7.62 NATO stuff, and we had left off, I believe, with 4 systems, I think. So now we're back again with 7.62 NATO, and we're visiting a different space, right? So this series of publications is really going to take you a lot of different places with the 7.62 NATO platform, and you're going to need to hold on because it's going to be a wild ride. It's very interesting. So this week, we're going to take a look at the CAT-DD. And again, that's the abbreviation for the full name, Dirty Dave, whatever, as it were. Those cat folks and their quirky names. Quirky? Yes. Performance-oriented? Well, so far, I think the answer is also yes. In our testing and analysis, that's what we have seen. So this is an introductory topic, so we're not going to go super deep and technical yet. That's for next week. However, I do want to give you an overview of the silencer and the big picture of what to expect. Okay, it's very important, I believe, to set expectations with all of these articles that we put out, and today is no different. So this is a so-called K silencer, okay, in the context of 308. And K is an abbreviation of the word Kurz, which is the German word for short. That's all it is, okay? That's where we get the K letter. Ever since we fell in love with the MP5, we all started speaking German unintentionally. I'm really not mad about it. That's fine. But that's probably where it came from in the gun community, right? MP5K, right? I mean, come on. And now, I should say in the silencer community, there have been some famous versions of silencers with a K suffix in the name. You know, like the Mark 9K. It's a very famous subgun silencer. That's one that comes to mind all the time in my brain. There's probably others too. There's probably something before that, but I feel like the MP5 is really where we got the vernacular. So, one second. I just wanted to kind of dwell on that for a second in context, because when you think about K silencers, there are certainly different lengths one may think about, right? Depending on the platform. So, you know, when you move to 5.56, or for example, 9mm pistol, a K silencer might be even as short as 4 inches sometimes. But typically on 308 or 7.62 NATO, or I guess in the universal terms, 30 caliber, you'll see a K silencer maybe around the 5 to 6 inch mark, typically, roughly. That's kind of where they're falling. Typically, doesn't mean it's always in there, but it's around that. Now, the Cat DD, depending on the model, is less than 6 inches long because it comes in both hub rear configurations and the left-hand QD configuration, like several of their rifle silencers do. Also, this silencer happens to be available in 2 different materials. You have their 3D printed proprietary Inconel nickel-based alloy. You also have their 3D printed titanium alloy they use. Pew Science tested the QD Inconel model. Okay, so as far as the 4 permutations, so there's 2 different mount types and there's 2 different materials. So you have four permutations of the silencer. The one we tested was the QD Inconel. And furthermore, we evaluated it with the Spooky 1 A2 mount. So what that is, it's their left-hand coarse thread flash hider, close tying cage flash hider for 7.62 use. Okay, it's not the 5.56, it's the 7.62 flash hider. There is a difference. That mount happens to stick out a little bit from the rear of the silencer, and so that with that mount in there, it brings the total length to 6 inches. Okay, so that's kind of from base of mount to end cap, you have 6 inches, and that's what you'll see from the barrel shoulder. So it's kind of interesting because you have 2 things going on here, right? And in my opinion, it can sometimes be a little confusing. You have 2 mount variations, QD or hub, and you have 2 material options, Inconel or titanium. So we're probably going to get to some of this in the technical talk, but at a high level, what you need to know is that the 2 Inconel versions of the silencer, the QD and the hub, they're going to be the main things they distribute. And the titanium model does exist, but the runs are limited. So you got to ask yourself, well, why? Why is that? Well, I'm glad you asked. No, but no, it actually, I'm joking a little bit, but it gets into the main thrust or the purpose of this silencer, and really the main topic of next week's technical discussion, I think, as I see it right now in my mind, because the purposely designed use case of the Cat DD is not bolt action use. Okay, it's a semi-automatic or fully automatic 7.62 NATO carbine silencer. I mean, full stop, right? So you let's say, and many of us do. So let's say you have a 12 to 14 inch barrel semi-auto 308. Okay, and you need something relatively compact. relatively good muzzle suppression with a relatively high flow rate and relatively good flash performance, that's kind of where the DD is sitting. Okay. And now when I gave you that kind of preface about the material selections, now you're kind of saying, oh, Inconel, got it. I see, right? Yeah, so this is one of those silencers where the material choice for a lot of users might be more clear, Now, just because that might be popular for a lot of folks, if you're doing super low rates of fire, well, hey, titanium version, right? Really lightweight, but hey, for the GI Joes doing, they're doing their recce mission during the day, so-called recce missions, and then they're kicking indoors at night, secret squirrel like all that stuff. Well, Inconel version is your guy, right? Because the developers are telling us that's what the silencer's for, right? The folks they're moving from low rates of fire on these weapons and down to aggressive schedules on the same host. So that's why they're picking the Inconel, and all in. That's what they're doing. And I mean that's what we're told. Okay, that's what the silencer's intent is. So over time, we're looking at and I'm kind of trying to give you some overall broad context. Over time, several 30 caliber rifle silencers have been produced that have purpose-built functions. Right, we're no stranger to this. Really, when you really start to think about it, you forget the marketing and start looking at the performance and start looking at what we really know about silencers through this research effort. And you really need to see that over time there have been purpose-built systems. Okay, what's one famous case of purpose-built systems? Bolt gun silencers. Why? Intended to maximize signature reduction. Full stop. Correct? Okay. Now, when you get to purpose-built semi-automatic 30 caliber silencers, there are a few standouts. I think we all can think of some. You of course, you have things like the OSS and the Huxworks stuff. It's a favorite of many SCAR owners nationwide. I think that's well known in the market. You also have things like the Surefire SOCOM 7.62 Mini 2. Remember, we've evaluated that a couple times here at Pew Science, and that sounds, it's a favorite of Surefire mount users, right? That they can change. Maybe they change to that silencer on their gun when maybe their 7.62 RC2 isn't being used, And so again, and you know what? You look at the 7.62 RC2. That's another semi-auto favorite for some folks. Has been for actually many years for a variety of reasons. So you look at this kind of niche part of the playing field of the very popular mainstream choices in that regime that have been around a while. And then you start to kind of look at the compact silencers, right? I would say and I don't mean to leave out anything if I'm leaving something out, but I'm thinking top of mind for very prolific models. When I think about that regime of compact 30 caliber semi-auto silencers, the Mini 2 from Surefire is probably the most well-known and prolific example of a silencer in the so-called K size adapted for use on semi-auto 7.62 NATO weapons. I think that's, whether or not they're calling it, that was designed for AKs, or no. When we're looking at K silencer for 7.62 NATO, the Mini 2 is it's a go-to for a lot of people. Okay, I've toyed with it myself. I practice what I preach, guys. I don't just talk about silencers. I use them. For one thing, the silencer looks pretty because it's a Surefire, and who doesn't love how it does look with the smooth tubes? But it's just iconic. Another thing, relatively high flow rate. Correct? We know that. We've seen that in our test data on multiple hosts. Correct? What did I do? What did we talk about in the past? I experimented with that Surefire silencer on a 13-inch barrel SCAR. And anecdotally, what we experienced here at the lab was that using the 7.62 Mini 2 on the SCAR, it gave us a more pleasant shooter experience with less ejection port blast than a 7.62 RC2, right? But what was the drawback? You remember me speaking about this. quite a long time ago, maybe last year when I was shooting it on 308, maybe shortly after we tested on 308. What was the drawback I spoke to you about? Well, the drawback was the muzzle signature was really killer on it, right? It was killer in the way it was propagating and just the way its signature was it was a relatively loud silencer. And I think we all know that. I don't think that's controversial to say. So if you're keeping score, you remember that. And yes, we're keeping score. This is Pew Science. Okay. Physics doesn't care about your brand. Remember. So when we set out to test the Dirty Dave, bringing this back, okay, I wanted to give you all this context. When we set out to test the Dirty Dave, we were intrigued because it's around the same size as a Mini 2. So the natural immediate question is, well, how does it compare to the Mini 2? I mean, that's not CAT, that's not the dealers, we were curious. Because it's a research progression and it's an experiential quandary, and so it just so happens that in our apparatus procurement, we're about halfway done probably with semi-auto 308 selection, that just was not ready in time for a public evaluation of this silencer. So CAT came to us for the evaluation. We told them, well, we're going to do it on a bolt gun if you want it to be contextual. And they said, fine. And we said, thank you for trusting us. So, okay. So after the dust settled and this test program was complete, I'm sort of glad that we did it like this. I really am. And when you look at this test report, you're going to see some very unusual things. And when I say unusual, I don't mean that as a negative. I mean, they are very strange in the way they present, okay? But you got to remember, if you haven't been keeping up with some of these CAT silencers, the technology in the DD is a variant of surge bypass, okay? And the twist here is they did something with the technology to adapt it for two different technical jobs that are somewhat different than, for example, you see implemented in the ODB, which is a different silencer, okay? The first thing they did to change function was they ramped up the pressure optimization, okay? So, and you'll see this thing is way optimized for high pressure. You're going to want to feed it pressure sandwiches all day, and you don't want to stop. It likes high pressure. Okay, fine. The second thing is they had to engineer a way to make the technology work over a much shorter distance. Okay, it's a K silencer. So combining those two things seems to have done something incredibly interesting to the sound field. And I want to save this stuff for the technical talk next week, but to sum it up for you here, like both succinctly and in a simple way, you simply would not expect the muzzle suppression rating of this silencer to be what it is, given what we see in the data. Okay? It's simply strange. The flow rate out of this silencer, the distal flow rate, the momentum transfer rate is very high. Okay? The omega metric is very low. Very low. In fact, yet we see a muzzle suppression rating that really stands out in the size class. Okay? And it's really interesting. Now, here's the other thing that's odd, but nuanced. So when you look at the shooter's ear rating, it's lower than you think it would be for the muzzle rating, right? When we see things like this, it's super interesting. And in this case, I think it's double interesting because at the end of the day, you're not putting this silencer on a bolt gun, really. I mean, I wouldn't. I not that I guess you can, but yeah, I mean, for me, I would pick something else. Like if it were me, you're gonna put this on a semi-auto, right? Right. So then what happens when you do put it on a semi-auto with that muzzle rating and this thing optimized for high pressure with a high flow rate, and now you're dealing with the ejection port blast? I mean, potentially, it looks like it's going to be an attractive performer, for the size. And you know what? We're not going to know exactly those technical parameters here at the lab until we do those evaluations. But all signs on our bolt action data seem to correlate, roughly with field trial results that others have performed with the silencer on different weapon systems. So that's cool. I'm excited to learn more about this system as testing progresses, but initial thoughts based on our testing on this bolt gun seem to indicate that the users that are liking it on reciprocating systems are having congruent experiences with the data. So that's a good, I like that because that's a really good peg point. So please check out the article. There are a lot of comparisons that we put in there that kind of make you say, interesting. Muy interesante. Yes. Yeah, at least they were for me. When I look at the comparisons, I was like, kind of turn your head a little bit. You're like, that's interesting. You wouldn't think it would do that. Or, you wouldn't think that other thing would be better. It's interesting. So there's a lot of cool physics in there. Now, there are, let's see, I had a list of things. Yeah. There are a couple things I want you to know about the silencer right up front. And I do want to tell you, we have the lab testing and analysis to prove this. Okay, so this is not speculation. I did get permission to tell you. And I wanted to tell you this because I think if I didn't tell you this, it would probably be irresponsible. Okay, so listen up. Do not think this is purpose-built for subsonic 300 blackout use. Okay, do not think that. Also, do not think this is purpose-built for 5.56 use. Do not think that. It simply does not work as well. And if you think this is going to be one of those multi-use, multi-caliber silencers, I'm here to tell you guys, you can certainly do it. I mean, you can use it on those things, but the performance is not going to be optimized. And what I just told you, that is the most clear and concise way I can think to say that. Okay, so don't, when it comes like 2, 4, 9, 10 years later, when someone complains about putting a DD on a subsonic 300 blackout whiz-bang secret squirrel rifle and complains something happens that they didn't expect, you can come back to this timestamp and be like, well, Jay told you that on August 27, 2024, so I don't know. What, you didn't know? Okay. Don't say I didn't warn you. Yeah, you're just really not going to want to play the multi-caliber game here. Now, that being said, I'm going to qualify it, of course, like I do everything. I say that with one caveat. There are, in existence, modern, purpose-built, high flow rate 5.56 silencers that are really not that much better than this silencer on 5.56. Okay, so, okay. So, I mean, if you're not super strict about your performance needs, knock yourself out, bro. Understand? Like, knock yourself out. Whatever. But again, this is a semi-auto 7.62 NATO carbine silencer, and that's what it is. The technology literally doesn't pretend to be something else. They're not putting on airs and being like, it's 30 caliber silencer. You can put anything through it you want. It's got a 30 caliber hole in it. Put it through. Send it. No. You can send it, but okay. When we tested this silencer, and like I wanted it to be great on everything because I was like, oh, it's so small. Wouldn't it be cool if no? So okay. No. I would think if you had to sum this up, big picture, purpose built, I would say if gun to my head, if you wanted me to tell you what this was, I would say it's a 7.62 Mini 2 cat style. That's what I would say. With a little high flow mixed in. And that's probably my best simplified description of the silencer because that's what our data shows. And that's, by all accounts, how it's performing. Enhanced performance Mini 2 cat style. I mean, that would be my analog to you. Okay. Now, I have not used this on the SCAR yet. I can tell you right now, there's way too much stuff going on. I haven't had a chance to dump into trash. I haven't had a chance to do any mag dumps for Jesus. I just have not. I want to. I will do it. And when I do it, I'm going to give you anecdotal reports. I'll film it at night. I love doing that. I love putting my night vision and thermal on and shooting the SCAR at night. It's like one of my favorite things to do. Doing hood rat stuff at night, it's one of the most important, fun things for stress relief. You just got to find the time sometimes. So that is the quick intro to the Cat DD. White paper is on the website around 0700 Central or so Wednesday. So yeah, this is an interesting adaptation of surge bypass. Very interesting data. Go check it out. I am very interested to hear your questions and feedback. So we'll be back again next week to speak technically about the article and the silencer's technical performance. And that will be very fun. Okay, so thank you to Combat Application Technologies for trusting our laboratory to perform this testing and analysis work. It was a pleasure. Okay, we will move into topic 2 at a time of 30 minutes and 57 seconds. Very good. Topic 2, more data and analysis coming very soon. Yes, continuing to explore a single combustion regime, but with different use cases. Same regime, different types of silencers, comparing and contrasting, different types of performance metrics. Very important to do, very important to understand. And I would very much like to continue this. One second. Excuse me. I would very much like to continue this and sweep into much more complex cases. And so this is sort of an interesting progression, and I am here for it. I love this type of progression. And the weird thing about it is we didn't plan it. It actually just fell into our lap. The silencer gods hath smiled upon us and blessed us with a varied performance gauntlet of the ages. And some of you might not remember. Some of you do. Remember old school Pew Science when we were just getting started, and we did these runs of dumping analysis on you like every week, and it started to get kind of weird. This is kind of like that. So stay tuned next week, actually, for something that's literally one of the wildest things we have ever seen happen ever. Next week, I'm telling you, you're not even ready for next week, dude. So there's that. I actually don't think folks are ready for next week, which is, I actually don't know what's going to happen because it's nuts. It's going to be very controversial, and there is really nothing we can do about that except present the analysis to you and give you our conclusions. That's all we can do. That's all we can ever do, and all we ever do. It is most likely, I would say, I'm trying to give you a preview. It is most likely one of the most unique things you have ever seen happen in the pedigree, and we are extremely honored to be involved with presenting it to the world. That's what I will say about next week. Okay? Now, I know that is a teaser that's super far in advance, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. I can't tell you what it is. I'm sorry, but you'll know next week. But it's topical because soon-ish, whenever, and believe me, the delays are not only on our end. Soon-ish, I don't want to jinx it, but we might be able to do some semi-auto 308 testing for you. In order to do the semi-auto 308 testing correctly and be super sure it's the right thing to do in the way we're doing it, we may be doing some final comparisons between a couple of hosts we're evaluating once we get all the components, and the SCAR will be in that group, and maybe we do a play date. So we can tell you the path forward is reasonable and prudent. And don't worry, don't freak out. We're not going to pick the SCAR as a standard host. It's just not smart. The SCAR has too many idiosyncrasies to be a standard test host for silencers. And that's a topic for another day. We've already been through that. Many of you understand it. If you don't understand that, I'm sure you can look into the SCAR project topics in the podcast, metadata tags on the website. You can also email me, tech@pewscience.com. I will be happy to discuss the FN SCAR system with you in great technical detail all day. I love talking about it. It's one of my favorite weapon systems. It just so happens it is not appropriate for the public at large for this type of research. Okay, but it's cool, and I want to test it next to something else that might be good just to see what happens, and I want to be able to tell you shoulda, woulda, coulda, didn't type of thing. Understand? Cool. All right. What else? Yeah, so through that, if we are able to properly and responsibly field a semi-automatic 308 host in the way we want to do it, I think it'll be good for everybody in that the existing 7.62 data is so large, we can spot check some things and some spot check some postulations folks have had over the years and really kind of see what these big boys are doing. And by big boys, I mean reciprocating 7.62 NATO. Like, I don't know if you know this, guys, but an AR-15 and an AR-10 platform are sort of similar, but there's some differences, and it's not the same ballpark when you suppress them. Okay, it's a different sport. So there's many reasons, but one being that. Another reason we're being relatively cautious when we move into such testing is because it's almost guaranteed that type of testing is significantly lower demand for the public at large than bolt gun testing on 308. And you might be scratching your head, be like, yo, you can't be right. I'm like, well, I know folks want it, but there are many more bolt gun users out there with rifle cartridge systems, full rifle cartridges like 7.62 NATO, than there are with large frame semi-autos. Okay, it's not the same. Like, it's the balance. Like, look at 5.56. Most people that use 5.56 are using it out of an AR. How many 5.56 bolt gun users are there? Well, there's a lot of 5.56 bolt gun users, but not as many AR users. Well, it's reversed in the 308 case. Okay, mostly bolt guns for 308. Okay, so my prediction is that this type of research will be a supplement and sort of a learning tool, not a super frequent gauntlet. Now, I reserve the right to be wrong, and it could be it's such a big hit that, and the way we're going to do it might be so popular that people are going to be like, oh my God, I want to see XYZ on that. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then we'll do that. Whatever, dude. Like, it's only ammo and time, right? Just kidding. It's only a tremendous amount of work for everyone involved. No, it'll be cool. But I just wanted to tell you that's on the horizon. Obviously we have M4 data to look at too on 5.56, which hasn't had a ton of publications, and you'll see more of that too this year. But this one is actually something that has been on our radar for quite some time and a lot of years too. So I just want to tell you there has been some progress made on it. We have not forgotten it. Okay. And to close that out, I just want to say, besides that being an addition as a research tool and apparatus, you do need to keep in mind, I would urge you to keep in mind that we are getting a ton of good, actionable information from bolt gun 308 testing, like you're getting today on the CAT-DD and what you're going to get next week on something ridiculous, and what you might get again on the following week. I mean, you're still getting a lot of good data that is actionable on platforms that are not just bolt guns from the bolt gun tests, because of what we've learned over time through the research. So don't forget that. Okay, it's important to understand to understand the holistic nature of the comprehensive understanding we gain from the bolt gun host. So that is all I have for you today. This is a very short and sweet episode. Data drop for you. Full technical analysis paper will be launched around 0700 Central, or give or take. Next week, you will see something. The next week after that, you're going to see something as well. And then we might rest, and maybe we kick off the craziness again. Maybe we do that. It is what we're going to. Okay, so roller coaster of love as we roll into fall, and it's the best season of them all. That's right. So stay safe out there, friends. I will talk with you folks again soon. Go check out and share the article. We'll talk technically next week. Okay, bye.